Hello everyone and welcome to Clear Voice. I'm John Monahan.
And I'm Christine Caswell. Bishop Kevin Boland is National Bishop Promoter of the Apostleship of the Sea. He's also Bishop Emeritus of Savannah.
The bishop was in Boston recently to bless wreaths for a ceremony at the site where the Titanic sank.
He spoke with Catholic TV's Kevin Nelson about the anniversary of the Titanic disaster, as well as the Apostleship of the Sea.
And joining us now is Bishop Kevin Boland, who is the Bishop Emeritus of Savannah, Georgia, and he's also a Bishop Promoter of the Apostleship of the Sea, and we're happy to have you here with us, Bishop.
I'm delighted to be here.
Maybe if you could start off by telling us a little bit about the Apostleship of the Sea.
Well, the Apostleship of the Sea is basically the ministry of the church to seafarers, to anyone who is associated actually with what I call port ministry, because it also involves the people on the land to take care of ships when they come. But there's a great emphasis on the sailors or the crews of these different ships that come to so many ports in the United States. And they're unique in their in-port for such a short period of time. And they may have been at sea for many, many weeks on end. So it's a very, in some ways, a very lonely type of job. And when they get port side, they want some recreation, they want access to be able to maybe contact their relatives overseas or their native countries, or they need some recreation, and we try to provide all of this for them in different ways. That's the ministry is basically the apostolate to those who live by the sea or on the sea.
Okay. And this has been around for quite some time too. The Apostleship, yeah.
The Apostleship of the Sea, yes. And there's even on the international level, like the Vatican has an apostolate to what we call Stella Maris, or to the sea.
Okay.
And they kind of give directions to it on the worldwide level.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you took up over as Bishop Promoter in 2008? Is that
2000, I forget really,
yeah. Now,
several years ago, yes.
So you're in the area for a special wreath blessing. I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, I was invited by the Coast Guard to come to Boston for the blessing of special wreaths that then are going to be taken out to sea and placed on the ocean at the sinking area of the Titanic. It's the centenary.
Okay.
And when I was invited to do this, I didn't hesitate to say yes to it, because I've always had an interest in the Titanic itself and what happened and the tragedy that it was. A tragedy that in many ways has captivated the world. And its last port of call was Southern Ireland. Plus, besides that, over and above that, the Titanic was built in Belfast in Northern Ireland. And so then went from there, upon its completion, to Southampton to Cherbourg in northern France, and then went to Queenstown in Southern Ireland. And from there, that's its last port of call, and was making its way across the Atlantic, of course, when it had the tragedy of hitting the iceberg at around 11 p.m. on the evening, late evening. It was in the darkness, which added to the tragedy, and sank like about 4 or 5 hours afterwards, very, very quickly, really, to the loss of a great amount of life. There was over 2,300 people on board that ship, and over 1,500 of those people died. Wow. The rest were saved on lifeboats. And many of the people in the lifeboats then were picked up by the Carpathia, which was a nearby ship that came to their rescue.
Okay.
And it's interesting, if you look at, there's great records of who they were. There was the very rich and famous, like the members of the Astor family, and very ordinary people going to the New World, looking for a new way of life. And they were all involved. There was no distinction when it came to that tragedy. You know.
You mentioned you were at that the museum as well, and some of the paraphernalia that was there as well.
Correct. I went to the museum just a couple of weeks ago in Queenstown that they've built in honor of and in memory of the situation. And it was very interesting because your admission to the museum was a replica of the ticket you got if you sailed in the Titanic, with someone's name on it. And so after you went through the whole museum and kind of relived the experience, then you went to a computer before you came out of the museum, and you identified who you were, your name was on the ticket, and what happened to you. And my particular case, I was not a survivor. But it was even more interesting in a way, because the ticket I had belonged to someone who gave the ticket to someone else, which caused them, when the tragedy happened then, I think the name was Stanton or something, but he never actually traveled. He ran a pub in Cork City, and he gave his ticket to someone else. So he never traveled on his own ticket. But the man who had his ticket, Doherty, he actually died. He was drowned in the accident, yeah. And
it's pretty impressive how the story of the Titanic has carried for so long. I know that with the movie, it sort of got people more acknowledgement of it for the younger generations. But this is a tragedy that I think, you know, just continues to carry on, and people either feel some type of attachment to it, or they connect to the story.
Connect to this. And part of it was, I think, it's hard to know, but part of it was that the ship was considered unsinkable, even if it did hit something, you know. And so I guess there was that kind of thing where we trying to defy the gods, as it were, you know. And of course, then when it hit the iceberg and sank so quickly, you know, it was anything but unsinkable, you know. And another part of the tragedy is there was not enough lifeboats on the ship, apparently, even to take everyone if they could have all got off, which probably is doubtful also, you know, because of the nature of it. It split in two. It kind of reared up just before it sank and split in two. And so on the ocean bed, the two parts are about 800 meters apart, or six to 800 meters apart. So there's all those aspects of it which make it kind of a mythical happening, but a very real and tragic happening. You know? Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, we're running out of time already, but I'd like to have you give a plug to the Apostleship of the Sea, too, if people are interested in that. And I know you're always looking for people to get involved, or for donations as well.
Yeah, we need donations, but especially we need volunteers on the ports in the United States, I think, of where there is this program, that it's kind of unknown and unseen in a way, because these particular people that we serve are only maybe in port for maybe 24 hours, and then maybe less than that, because the commerce of the sea is all built into the port, unload and reload, and off you go again. And so it needs an awful lot of people to take an interest in it. And some dioceses have full-time port chaplains, others have part-time chaplains, and it's a very noble but demanding type of ministry, you know. So I would advocate that people take an interest in it, find out about it, and preach the good news and take care of all of these people who supply our food, our commerce, our automobiles. Probably everything we use every day in some way or another has been on a ship, and it's come from elsewhere, you know.
Yeah. Well, we thank you so much for being here today, Bishop.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.